Charlie Kirk. Venom and Retribution. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. The assassination of Charlie Kirk last week provides a wealth of material for examination with regard to human behaviour, linked to the topic of narcissism and the issue of emotional empathy. There is, of course, Charlie Kirk's behaviour when he has been engaging in debate and has been involved as a conservative activist. There have been the responses of individuals to his death jumping on one or another bandwagon. I've spoken about that in my video of last week, Charlie Kirk Now Watch the Narcissists. There's also the public reaction, which has ranged from those expressing disbelief, shock and hurt at his death to those revelling in it, crowing about his murder. And the venom continues, but it also exhibits some interesting responses by way of retribution. Let's have a quick reminder of the nature of some people's responses with this short video clip.
He's dead, y'all. Thank God. One down, couple more to go. He's dead. He's dead. He's dead. Bye, Charlie Kirk, bitch. Bye. Piss me the fuck off. Bye. He's dead. He's dead. He's dead. Bye. Got shot. Not my problem. Bye, bye, bye. Call me hateful. I don't care. He deserved it. Bless. I feel blessed today, guys. Blessed!
What is clear from that video clip is that this young woman is not exhibiting any emotional empathy for Charlie Kirk or those affected by his death. Whether this is because she doesn't have any emotional empathy at all, or whether it's eroded as a consequence of other factors, we don't know. But we do know that this behaviour demonstrates an absence of emotional empathy. The fact that she is moved to use the words that she does, behave in the manner that she does, essentially dancing because somebody's died, and then deciding that it's appropriate to film that and place that on social media, demonstrates an entitled view and an absence of emotional empathy. The driver behind it, well, we'd have to examine more of that woman's behaviours to make a determination. Her behaviour, of course, is not isolated. There are many examples, similar examples, which have proliferated across social media, in particular on X and TikTok. Many individuals expressing their delight, revelling in the death of Charlie Kirk. I've explained in my video, Charlie Kirk Public Reaction, what the drivers behind such behaviour might be. If you haven't watched that video already, I'd encourage you to do so. As a consequence of so many people exhibiting their venom on social media, this has also prompted an interesting response from other people who have taken it upon themselves to out these individuals and complain about their behaviour to their employers, essentially stating, is this the type of person that you would want to be associated with? Is this the type of person you would wish to employ? Now remember, the individuals that have taken to social media to express their delight at the death of Charlie Kirk are entitled to express those views. Whether they should exercise them, well, that's another matter. And if they choose to do so, as they are allowed to do so as a consequence of freedom of speech, it's important that they understand, although it appears that many fail to recognise, that there are consequences as a result of the things that you say, and that you need to be prepared for what those consequences are. And it would appear that many of those individuals exhibit either idiocy, naivety, or quite simply a belief that they can do as they please without consequence, i.e. they show no accountability. And this has resulted in a number of individuals finding themselves on the receiving end of complaints. For example, take a look at this. An ex-user that goes by the handle of Lisa Kipp describes the fact that she has created a spreadsheet of people who have said vile things about Charlie Kirk's assassination. So far, teachers and professors are by far the most represented. And beneath her post, she provided said spreadsheet, which is a little difficult for you to read on screen, but there's a host of names which contains details of their profession and the relevant employer and whether they've been fired so far, and there's about 5 firings on that particular list. Thus, those individuals that have spoken out about Charlie Kirk and have done so in a public and unpleasant way have found that there has been some retribution, but it goes further than this particular list. So far, Matthew Dowd, a political analyst for MSNBC, made on-air comments describing Kirk as one of the most divisive figures who pushed hate speech aimed at certain groups, adding that hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions. He was fired from his job. Callie Woolk, who is an executive director and board director at Wassaw River District and Rise Up Central, Wisconsin, reposted a news story about Kirk's shooting with the comment "well deserved," followed by hand-clapping emojis. Her employment was terminated. Laura Sosh-Lightsey, an assistant dean of students at Middle Tennessee State University, put a Facebook post up stating, "Looks like old Charlie spoke his fate into existence. Hate begets hate, zero sympathy." She has been fired. Wynne Boliek, a high school teacher at Greenville County School District in South Carolina, wrote, "Thoughts and prayers to his children, but in my honest opinion, America became greater today. There, I said it." This individual was fired. Michael Rex, a professor at Middle Tennessee Institution, wrote, "Karma is beautiful," and then an expletive. Rex was fired. Max Wood, an assistant coach at a Middle Tennessee institution, wrote hateful or celebratory content regarding Kirk's death and was fired. Dot Heffron, a school board member, mocked Kirk's death and resigned under pressure. Other outcomes of unnamed individuals include an Oregon teacher who posted that Kirk's assassination really brightened up my day, fired. A Milwaukee child care employee from the Nextdoor organization posted about making Kirk's death political and that if all you do is spew hate, you're bound to get some in return, fired. Office depot worker in a Michigan store refused to print flyers for a Kirk vigil, calling them propaganda, fired. A communications staffer for an NFL team, possibly the Carolina Panthers, used offensive language or memes about Kirk's death, fired. A US Marine made an anti-Kirk post, fired. A University of Mississippi employee made comments of an adverse nature concerning the assassination, was fired. The co-owner of a Cincinnati barbecue restaurant used offensive language or memes, fired. Nurse at Childcare's Healthcare of Atlanta, fuck his kids, fuck his ancestors, especially the bitch who birthed him, fired. AAA employee, celebratory video about Kirk's death, fired. Doctor at University of Miami shared an Instagram post about Kirk's death, fired. School custodian quoted Kirk's own words about deaths being worth protecting rights and did so in a celebratory context, fired. Multiple American Airlines employees, including at least one pilot, mocked Kirk's death as the cost of our liberty, fired. There's been additional reports of firings among teachers, firefighters, journalists, and politicians. Accordingly, quite a number of individuals have found that they've been on the receiving end of retribution, which then raises an interesting question about the individuals that have highlighted what they have written, recognise they're exercising their right to free speech, but deem it appropriate to report those individuals with the consequence that they have lost their jobs as a consequence of articulating a view. Interestingly, hitherto, what was often highlighted was the fact of people being placed under pressure and fired for not conforming with language that would fit with diversity and inclusion and equity, that individuals were placed under pressure to conform with appropriate views concerning, for instance, trans individuals. The pendulum has seemed to have swung in the opposite direction, which is certainly interesting. What about the position of those that have, in effect, grasped on or highlighted or ratted on these individuals to their employers, pointing out, you've got an employee who's posted hateful content, do something about it. And you probably have seen many instances of this across Facebook and X and other social media outlets. What's motivating those individuals to engage in this retribution? Well, part of it may well be driven by emotional empathy for Charlie Kirk and those affected by his death, that they simply look upon the crowing and the revelling as disgusting, unfair, inappropriate, and therefore deemed that retribution is appropriate. In other words, it's the empathic trait of justice, combined with their emotional empathy, compelling them to do so. In other instances, it could be the highlighting of a narcissistic trait of resentment and anger at their behaviour, which has motivated the responses. Again, it is interesting because there will be individuals that will actually be revelling in ensuring the dismissal of those that have revelled in the death of Charlie Kirk. And once again, their motivations will be different dependent upon what classification of individual that they are. But it demonstrates a harsh lesson, but one that they need to learn in respect of those that, if they wish to exercise in the emission of venom, there are consequences. You are allowed to express your opinion. But it's worthwhile ensuring, first of all, that it's a well-formed opinion, and also that you understand that your right to express yourself comes with responsibility, that there are consequences to what you say. And let's have a little look at a piece of video footage from somebody who got fired from Microsoft, because his reaction to his firing is also rather telling. Have a look at this.
I made some stupid comments about Charlie Kirk on the day that he was shot. I said some things on Blue Sky and on Threads that I'm sorry, not sorry for, but I said them and I deleted them when it was requested that I do so by my employer. And then today, on a weekend, I'm told that I am no longer employed at Microsoft. After 6 years, building the diversity, equity, and inclusion department from scratch, I lose my job because one of you, some random person, reports my posts to my employer, goes out of their way to find out where I work, and takes my job, takes my security away from me for a thought, for an opinion. And you talk about freedom of speech like you care about it, and you're just going to take my money, my life, my food off my plate because I don't like Charlie Kirk? That's not okay. It is not okay to target me because I felt joy that day. I can't help how I feel. I felt joy. That's me. That's what I believe. That's what I think of him. I can't help that. So I don't deserve a job?
Oh, sweet, sweet retribution. Here we have an individual that decides the most appropriate thing to do is to go crying to social media, because after all, the world revolves around him. He starts off by admitting that he made some stupid comments. Okay, it would appear perhaps that he's got a little bit of insight into his behaviour, but he soon quashes any suggestion of that by stating sorry, not sorry. He goes on to explain that he said them. Oh, is he owning his words? Well, not really, because he explains that he did delete them when requested. So he didn't post it in a sudden fit of pique or an emotional surge and then think, hang on a second, that wasn't very sensible, I should delete them. He obviously stood by what he said. The only reason he deleted it was because his employer came along and said to him, you need to take those down. He clearly thought that that was the end of the matter, but it wasn't, because at the weekend, yes, shock horror, at the weekend, he's told that he's no longer employed by Microsoft after 6 years. In a delicious taste of irony, he tells us that he, oh yes, because it's all about him, built up the DEI department from scratch. And once again, this is demonstrative of a point that is made about many of the individuals that subscribe to similar views, that they, and I've pointed this out in other videos, that they will regularly talk about how they are kind and empathic and inclusive and they support diversity so long as it's on their terms. And the minute that you deviate from that, well, you're castigated. They preach be kind, but what they really mean is be compliant with my view. And it is not lost to witness an individual who operated within the DEI function of Microsoft to fall foul of demonstrating views which ordinarily you wouldn't expect someone to articulate if they truly bought in to the concept of DEI. The fact is, many of the individuals, and we've seen it through actual evidence, proclaim a loyalty to the tenets of DEI, but their own behaviour shows that they're very far from actually living and breathing those tenets. He then continues by explaining that he's lost his job because one of you, some random person, reported his posts, and you've taken his job and his security and his paycheck. And you talk about freedom of speech, and you've done this to me, and that's not okay. Victimhood writ large. Of course, this individual with regulation nose ring displayed has to ensure that he's allowed to complain about his misfortune, but he's also allowed to revel in the misfortune of Charlie Kirk's wife and children and his friends and other members of the family at the loss of Charlie Kirk. Once again, you're perfectly entitled not to like the views of Charlie Kirk, and indeed many of his views are ones that people found reprehensible, and one can understand why that might be. But they went further than that. It'd be one thing to say, I don't agree with Charlie Kirk because, and you are very much allowed to state all of that. But in effect, reveling in the death of somebody because they had an opposing or alternative view to you shows the measure of these individuals. And the fact is, he demonstrates a complete absence of responsibility for his behaviour and a sense of entitlement to behave in the way that he did, because he states, it's not okay, I felt joy, I couldn't help it. So not only did this fuckwit exhibit joy in the death of another individual as a consequence of the fact that he had been assassinated because somebody didn't agree with his views, but he shows a complete lack of self-awareness because he doubled down on his idiocy by going on social media and telling everybody, I can't help it, I felt joy. You'd be much better keeping your head down, not going on social media and thinking about dusting off your resume and securing a new job. Although, of course, it'd be interesting in every interview that you go to and they ask you, why did you lose your last job? Well, basically because I'm a hateful little individual that decided to write about the death of another person in terms whereby I celebrated the fact that he died. Now, we don't know specifically what he said, but it's clear the thrust of what was mentioned. But his reaction to the retribution that's been meted out against him is deliciously ironic, and also provides a further opportunity to examine the way that certain individuals react. They dole it out, but they can't take it. That they feel it's appropriate to criticise other people, to revel in the death of a man, but when their behaviour is called out, they don't take responsibility for it, but even more so, double down on justifying it. I felt joy, I couldn't help it, and then crying like a little whiny bitch about, you've taken away my job, you've taken away my security. Well, You're with the big boys now, matey boy. If you're going to play such games, you've got to be prepared for the consequences. And individuals such as this demonstrate, if we're being kind, idiocy, and if we're perhaps being more realistic, the demonstration of a sense of entitlement and a lack of accountability, which might give us huge clues as to the type of individual that we are watching. Plenty of venom has been spewed in relation to Charlie Kirk, and then the Retribution has come about. And those that are on the receiving end certainly don't like it and have been bemoaning their circumstances. But hang on a second. Isn't it the case that you're experiencing something of what you criticised Charlie Kirk for? You said that he brought it on himself. Isn't that what you've all done? And yet now you complain about it. Hypocrites, each and every one of them. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for watching.